So, in this segment, we're going to continue talking about the mass culling of pigs because the country doesn't have enough butchers and skilled staff to process the animals, because mainly down to the Brexit, isn't it? So, a major crisis is coming to a head on pig farms up and down the country. It's a crisis that farmers warned us about, and it's happening. Their worst nightmares are coming to pass. The mass culling of healthy animals because there simply aren't enough butchers to process them and get them off the farms. So this article has kind of an Easter egg for me, a hidden Easter egg, which we're going to talk about when we get there, because yeah. Anyways, the culling is likely much worse than the numbers being officially reported to the industry body, which fears shame and sadness, preventing many from speaking openly about the reality when they realistically should be open about this, because we know what caused the problem here. It was Brexit and the end of freedom of movement. So if you guys were open and honest about this, you could push for change. You could say to the Tory government, look, we need freedom of movement or visa-free access for butchers because we don't train enough, and the government have to put in a scheme to train more butchers and make it more accessible for people to get into that industry if that's what they want to do. If they were open and honest about this, we wouldn't have as many problems as we do within the country. But maybe they don't want to be open about this because some of these people may have voted for Brexit. I don't know. Thousands of healthy pigs are almost certainly being killed every week at the moment because possibly tens of thousands. These animals are not destined for the food chain but are killed just to make space on farms. Some farmers are even turning to carry out abortions on pigs, a fractionally less traumatic way to deal with the brutal, traumatic crisis of a backlog of animals. I mean, that's just insane. Honestly, that's crazy. Doing abortions on animals. The problems. These aren't the problems. It's the people who voted for this. The crisis is fundamentally rooted in the current labour shortage. It's hit the meat processing industry particularly hard, a sector that's traditionally relied on migrant labour, EU labour. Let's not forget here, these are the people who said, well, we'll get our own people to do it. Where are the British people that are becoming butchers then? Where are they at? A combination of changing immigration rules related to Brexit and many workers choosing to go home during the pandemic, those would be EU workers choosing to return to the EU, not necessarily going home, and not returning, has left the sector 15 to 20% down on the staff it needs. And this is the effect of that lack of staff. Not only has the sector struggled to recruit new workers from the domestic population, but butchers are also highly skilled and can't be trained overnight. So all of those Brexiteers who said, we'll get British people to do the jobs of the bloody foreigners, it was never going to happen because these are skilled jobs. We tried to portray EU workers as unskilled, low skilled, easily replaceable when they're not. They never were. It's very hard to replace workers, especially skilled ones, in a field where no one really wants to work there, where the pay isn't great and the conditions are hard. You're going to find it very difficult to replace people in those industries. It all means that early autumn, the meat processors have been routinely taking around 25% fewer pigs from farms than agreed in contracts. I mean, that's a quarter, that's a lot. Rearing a pig for slaughter is a 10-month process, so this sudden drop-off has led to a huge backlog of pigs on farms, likely around 150,000 nationally. And the thing is, if they knew this going in, if they knew there weren't getting enough butchers at the start of the year, then things may have changed, but, they weren't prepared for this. They didn't think the government would do this to them. There are other forces that are compounding the problem, including a loss of exports to the Chinese market for some pig processors. Let's not forget, Liz Truss famously said we're going to start exporting more pork to China and opening up Chinese pork markets. Well, Liz, what happened? And the disruption caused by the recent CO2 shortage. It all constitutes a huge challenge for farmers because not only do pigs left on the farm for too long get too big to retain their value, but most urgently space is swiftly running out, and if you can't get them to the slaughterhouse essentially, then they're costing you money, which again is very capitalistic and immoral, but that's the world farmers live in. The UK has strict welfare standards to avoid overcrowding, and many farmers simply can't manage much more of a backup. So this is what I found interesting. The farmer, Kate Moore. So some of you might remember that name because it is a familiar name now. We go over to this article from The Express, ironically, and this is dated the 18th of October 2021, so it's not that old, right? She says, so you got East Yorkshire pig farmer Kate Moore, the same person, has defended the decision to back leave in 2016. This is saying pride. You're talking the highest levels of pride here to not back down on the vote that has essentially screwed over her business. She backed her vote in 2016, telling the BBC Radio 4's Woman's Hour Miss Moore was invited onto the radio programme to discuss the supply chain problems affecting the British meat industry. When the farmers was challenged by some listeners for complaining about the predicted outcomes of Brexit, Miss Moore delivered a passionate defence of the Brexit vote. You know, passionate, because that's what these people are, passion merchants. Honestly. You know, they asked her, does she now regret her vote? She said, I think this is something that came to light on Friday, that people like to troll people on social media, which is really unfair. Yes, I did vote for Brexit. Then you're not being trolled. People are saying, is this you? And telling you what you've put. That's not a hard one to figure out. But I can assure everybody that's listening, I did not vote for this. I voted for people to be more patriotic. So you voted for Brexit to be more patriotic. Well, let's hope those patriots learn how to be butchers to help bail you out next year or the year after, however long it takes to become a butcher, because you're really in trouble this year, aren't you, pal? You go on, saying, I voted for the government to look after ourselves, to put border controls in. Yeah, they put border controls in, and they kept the people out that you need to come into your farm and the slaughterhouses and the abattoirs to deal with the animals that you have reared. There's a number of things that I voted I voted. I went to a number of meetings, nearly one a week. I was very educated in my vote. Evidently, you weren't that educated. You went to meetings full of misinformation then, because you voted to make yourself poorer directly. Said, I respect other people's vote and they should respect my vote. We do respect your vote. You voted to vote stupidly, so, you know, we're mentioning, is this you? Did you vote for this? You know, it's not the case of you know, people trolling you and whatever. You voted for this. This is the outcome you wanted then in 2016, to be more patriotic. Well, the patriots aren't here to bail you out. You know, there's some sort of blame around vegetarians as well. I mean, that's a load of rubbish. I don't think there was much more in the article that I wanted to talk about, but honestly, the key moments led to Brexit: the Maastricht Treaty, Black Wednesday, Lisbon Treaty, European debt crisis, David Cameron's EU reform fails. I mean, not really. I mean, it's when you stuck £350 million on a bus. And I know it hurt. It must hurt people like her, because it feels like you got hit with one of these.
Prepare yourself. God will come to death.
It's kind of ironic that they're having to kill, you know, I think it's tens of thousands of pigs a week, you know, so it's pretty much an accurate statement. Die 1,000 deaths. That's what these pigs have died. So many of them have died not to, you know, not for what their purpose was, to go into the food chain, as, you know, immoral as people may see that as. They've died just to be killed for no reason, essentially. They were, you know, killed for no reason. Kate Moore runs her family's East Yorkshire pig farm with her sister, and she feels the pressure of these choices acutely. Across their multiple sites, at any one point, she could be caring for as many as 40,000 pigs. You know, again, do we feel sympathy for her? I mean, this is what she voted for. She's very adamantly sticking to her vote. There's no remorse here, I guess, or kind of any acceptance of, like, she voted for the wrong thing. I mean, is that a person you feel sympathy for, that holds so strongly to their say and pride that they won't see, you know, the truth, which is you voted for something that has made your life, you know, materially worse? Her farm is run to the highest standards. She uses straw in the kennels, which is a more expensive option, but much better for the pigs. Our European counterparts think we're mad, she says, smiling. I mean, they think you're mad because you voted for Brexit. I mean... to go on, if nothing changes by Christmas, she'll be left with no choice but to cull, a reality she describes as disgusting. I feel angry, I feel upset, I've cried, I get cross. Yes, I've had every feeling that you can imagine, she says. Just the thought that we've had to apply for a license to be able to kill healthy animals actually makes me feel a bit sick. If I get to a position where we have to do it, we will need so much support, because it will break my sister and I. It's criminal, totally criminal. The backlog is costing her between £20 and £30 per pig. Many other farmers she knows have already gone under. It's just not fair, because none of this is our fault. Now, what do you mean by none of this is your fault? You voted for this, and if you voted Tory in 2019, you double voted for this, because they were very clear. They were going to end freedom of movement. That means, you know, less butchers and, you know, meat processing stuff. So yeah, it kind of is a bit on you, isn't it? Not too sure about that one, Chief. And we're the ones that are dealing with it emotionally, financially. I mean, if the government really cared about you, you know, you voted for Brexit, so we look after our own. Why ain't the government helping you, fam? Why have they cut farmer subsidies? Maybe they never cared about you in the first place, and the EU actually cared about you more. That's why the EU gave you subsidies and stuff to make your farms viable. Now look at you, pal. Not doing too good, are you? Yeah, it's all we think about at the moment. I mean, this has consumed their lives, essentially. I don't think there's anything more in the article that we wanted to talk about, but 35% of farmers between 100 and 500 pigs backed up on a farm, while 30% have over 500. So you can see a massive amount of pigs left on these farms. The solutions, so following concerted campaigns from the industry last month, the government introduced 3 measures to try and alleviate the problem. Firstly, it announced it would introduce 800 temporary visas for foreign pork butchers to come into the country for 6 months. I mean, how's that going to help these people next year? The 2 other measures were designed to get pigs off farms quickly and immediately, with new visas being granted and allocated. The slaughter incentive payment was introduced to try and persuade abattoirs and meat processors to schedule extra kills, and so essentially you're asking staff to work harder. And the government is now funding private freezer storage. So now we're subsidising this. Great. The idea being that pigs could be stored there temporarily before being butchered. I mean, it's crazy. However, neither measure is yet to alleviate the problem because you're down 20% of staff. This ain't going to help you. You're down, 2 in 10 people? It's just madness. You can't solve it with quick fixes like this. You need the people to come in. When they come in, you have to find them accommodation. You have to train them, so that takes time. Talking about getting people in to do these jobs. They expect these new butchers won't be fully on stream until next year. I mean, it might not even be that. So next year we might face the same problem. And then there are problems, she says, with the slaughter bonus and the extra freezer storage. The bonus only applies to meat that is going into private storage or is being exported abroad. And given the meat processing industry is currently rushing to prepare domestic Christmas orders, there is little incentive for them to take up these facilities. Again, is this the government giving the private sector more money? It's just crazy. And do you know what? We're gonna leave it there. I think it's enough dunking on these farmers. What my advice to these farmers is that what you need to do is you need to figure out how you're going to make things change. You need to figure out what you're going to do exactly to lobby the government and talk to the opposition parties to make a change here, because you man voted for this in 2016, and if you voted Tory in 2019, you double voted for it. If you vote Tory again in the next general election, I've got absolutely no sympathy for you, and forget trolling, you'll get dunked on real hard, and I'll be one of the ones dunking, trust me on that one, pal. And that is not what you want. And while it might feel like you haven't got many options, you do. You start lobbying the government now and really trying to do something here, and you might have a shot at change. Who knows? But if you keep voting for the same people that put you in this mess, I don't know how many farmers vote Tory, but I think a lot of them do. You're going to continue to be in this mess. So anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and we're going to end on this Akuma move again because it's really cool.